I was 32 and trying to find hidden gems for my travel article. A friend told me about this abandoned village. She said it had a beauty of its own, with worn cottages and thick trees. I thought it would be a quirky setting for my next piece. When I arrived, I felt a strange stillness in the air. It was eerily quiet, and I remember thinking it was just an old place left to decay. I set up camp inside one of the cottages. The musty smell hit me, but I didn't mind. For one night, I could deal with it. As darkness fell, the chill seeped in. I grabbed my notebook, wanting to take some notes, but the silence felt heavy, almost suffocating. At first, I heard something. It sounded like footsteps, maybe an animal. I felt a tingle on my skin, but I brushed it off. Just my imagination, right? As I settled in with my flashlight, the footsteps came again. They dragged along the ground with a rhythmic groan. My heart raced, but I convinced myself it was just the wind or branches. I peeked through the cracked window and saw something shift behind the trees, just a shadow darting away. I thought maybe I was just tired. The dark can play tricks on your mind. The next night, it got worse. The footsteps returned, this time lingering, almost like whispers. I was sure they were real. I thought I heard hushed voices, but couldn't make out the words. It felt like someone wanted to tell me something. The air was thick, but I shoved it aside. I found a rusty toy car in the dirt outside the cottage. It looked like it had been placed there carefully. I felt uneasy, like eyes were watching me. As the sun set, shadows crept closer. They seemed to stretch and twist. There was a heaviness in the air that wouldn't leave. I glanced toward the trees, gripping my notebook. I should leave, but my curiosity got the best of me. What happened to the villagers? Was there a story to uncover? On the final night, I was desperate to understand. The footsteps were closer now. It felt like they were right outside. I thought I saw something moving through the window. My heart was racing. I called out, questioning if anyone was there, but received no answer. Then I saw it. A figure stood still against the trees. It was quiet and watching me. I called out again, my voice trembling. "Is someone there?" No reply. That chill ran down my spine. I whispered, "Hello?" And then I heard it. A soft voice, barely above a whisper. It said, "Why are you here?" I turned around quickly. Nobody stood behind me. Just the empty cottage and the heavy night air. I was alone, yet I felt anything but safe. I stared into the darkness, waiting for an answer that never came. I sat frozen, my mind racing. That voice still echoed in my ears. Why was I here? Good question. I was here to write a story, but all I'd found was fear. I strained my eyes to see through the deepening darkness, but nothing moved. Was I imagining things? I took a breath, willing myself to stop being such a coward. I grabbed my flashlight, feeling its weight a comfort. Maybe if I moved closer to the trees, I could confront whatever had been watching me. My heart pounded, but curiosity lured me forward. As I stepped outside, the cool air wrapped around me like a damp cloth. I walked slowly, my flashlight illuminating the tangled roots and half-collapsed graves. I felt like I was stepping into a forgotten time, a place so lost it held secrets I could barely grasp. Then I heard it again, those footsteps. They were sharper now, like someone dragging something heavy across the ground. I turned off my flashlight. Light made me vulnerable. I needed to listen, to be aware. The footsteps stopped, and silence fell over the village. I felt the hairs in the back of my neck rise. I wasn't alone. I was sure of it now. I inched toward the trees, almost holding my breath. With every step, I felt a weight settle on my shoulders, as if the very air was thickening. Suddenly, my foot caught on something. A branch, perhaps? I stumbled and landed hard on the ground. My flashlight rolled away and out of reach. Panic surged through me as I fumbled in the darkness. "Stop!" The command came from the shadows. It was clear and confident. I looked up to see the outline of a figure standing among the trees again. My heart raced. It was them, the one watching me. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, trying to steady my voice. "What do you want?" The figure stepped closer, and I felt an icy grip of fear. I tried to crawl back, but my thoughts began to race with dread. What if this was the end of my story? Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted, as if it wanted to swallow me whole. "I want to know why you're here," the figure replied, softer this time, but still laced with urgency. "Why do you disturb us?" I blinked hard, struggling to make sense of the encounter. People? Were there really people here? Or were they just shadows of history? I'm just a traveler, I stuttered. "I want to know what happened, to tell your story, but I won't disturb you if you want me to leave." The figure hesitated, and for a moment the silence was deafening. Was I finally getting through? Then, without warning, echoes of laughter filled the air, childlike and haunting, resonating through the trees. "Leave? You think you can? figure stepped into the beam of moonlight, revealing a face, old and lined. "You don't know the truth. You need to see." Before I could respond, shadows swirled around me, and everything went dark. I gasped for air, but felt weightless, drifting into a void. Then I saw it. Images flashed before my eyes, children playing, laughter ringing, a village filled with life. But the laughter turned to screams, the vibrant colors dimmed. I realized with a jolt, the truth wasn't a story, it was a warning. "Wake up!" The voice pierced through my mind. "Wake up!" And just like that, I was back. But this time, I wasn't alone. I blinked in disbelief as shapes began to form around me. The air felt different now, alive with whispers that shared fractured fragments of the past. I pushed myself up from the ground, my heart still racing. The figure was gone, swallowed by the night. But something remained, an intangible weight, a presence lingering in the shadows. Then I heard it again, the laughter. It echoed like a distant memory, familiar yet out of reach. My breath caught. I couldn't just stand there. I had to explore. The village, once a mere collection of graves and decaying buildings, was starting to feel like a puzzle waiting to be solved. I flicked my flashlight back on, the beam trembling in my hand. I aimed it toward the path ahead, my instinct screaming to turn back. But I couldn't. I had to know the truth. I made my way past the trees and toward what appeared to be the remnants of a house. As I approached, the air grew colder. The door, hanging askew on its rusted hinges, creaked ominously. I hesitated, but then stepped inside. The darkness engulfed me, swallowing the light from my flashlight. With each footfall, the floorboards groaned beneath me, complaining against my intrusion. Dust motes danced in the beam of light, revealing faded photographs scattered across the floor. I knelt, my heart thumping with dread and intrigue, as I picked one up. It showed a group of children smiling, their eyes bright with mischief, perfectly encapsulating joy. But the faces blurred around the edges, distorting into something else, something sinister. Suddenly, I heard footsteps again, heavy and deliberate, echoing from somewhere deep within the house. I glanced around, panic rising. Someone or something was there. I took a few cautious steps backward, instinctively clutching my flashlight tighter, ready to defend myself. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No answer came, just the relentless sound of footsteps that seemed to draw closer. I felt my pulse quicken. A flicker of movement caught my eye down the hallway. Someone was standing there, partially obscured by shadows. I wanted to turn and run, but instead I took a step toward the figure. "Please, I just want to understand," I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. The figure melted further into darkness, and panic crawled up my throat. Where had they gone? Had I imagined it? Then I saw something glinting on the floor beneath where they had stood. I bent down and picked up a small pendant, a silver locket etched with designs so intricate they dazzled in my flashlight's beam. Opening it revealed an old photograph, a woman whose face was eerily familiar to the children's. A chill ran down my spine. Who were these people? The laughter echoed again, vibrant and taunting. I felt dizzy, overwhelmed by the intertwining stories of joy and sorrow. They were begging to be told, but I was afraid of what they would mean. Just then, I heard the door slam shut behind me. The shadows deepened as fear washed over me. I wasn't alone, and I realized I had walked right into their world. The darkness felt alive now, constricting around me. I had uncovered something I wasn't ready for. What awaited me in the next rooms would change everything. But before I could gather my thoughts, the laughter started again, now more menacing, more urgent. And then I sensed it, a presence behind me. I turned, heart hammering, and gasped. I froze, the gasp barely escaping my lips. The figure materialized from the shadows, a translucent silhouette of a girl no older than 10. Her face was marred by a sadness that pierced me more than fear ever could. I tried to speak, but my voice failed me. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, laced with a childlike sweetness that felt out of place in the eerie stillness. Before I could answer, she took a step closer. I could see through her, but it was the expression on her face that held me captive. There was a longing there, an unspoken wish. My heart ached for her, but backed by my instinct to run, my body trembled. "Please, I need to know," I finally managed to say, my voice sounding small and weak against the hollow walls. Her gaze shifted past me, and the air grew heavy with despair. "You shouldn't be here. They don't like visitors." A chill raced through me. I took a tentative step back, the locket
flashlight slipping from my fingers and clattering to the floor. As it hit the ground, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices swirling around me. The air thickened and images flickered around the girl. I could see the children from the photograph playing on the very grass I stood on, bright and laughing. But suddenly, the scene darkened, morphed into chaos, a raging storm, flashes of anger and fear. "What happened?" I whispered, clutching the edge of a table to steady myself. The girl's expression hardened, and I sensed a pulse of energy around us. "They took them. They always take us." Her eyes glinted with unshed tears. "You must leave before it's too late." My mind raced. I remembered the stories I had heard about this place, the rumors echoing through town, but it was different witnessing them unfold in front of me. "Who?" I asked, dread creeping into my bones. "Who took them?" She pointed past me, and I could feel a presence materializing behind me, dark and heavy like a suffocating blanket. Every instinct told me to run, but I was paralyzed. The girl wavered, flickering like a candle in the wind. "They don't want to share." Her voice trembled, asking for my help, but before I could respond, the temperature plummeted. I turned slowly, flashlight beam shaking in my hand. In the hallway stood a figure cloaked in shadows, a faceless silhouette that emitted a low, grave hum. The girl gasped, her image fading with each approaching step of the dark figure. "No," I shouted, stepping forward instinctively, but she was slipping away. "Wait."
The shadow lunged towards me, an overwhelming wave of darkness crashing over the room. I stumbled back, colliding with the wall as fear ripped through me. Then, everything went dark. In the pitch black, I felt the weight of the world pressing in. I strained to hear anything, and then I heard it. A breath, close and raspy, brushing against my ear. Then came the laughter, low and menacing, wrapping around me like ivy tightening its grip. I was not alone in the dark. "Help us," a voice hissed, filled with anguish, "before it's too late." My heart pounded. I had to break free from this. I needed light, a way to escape. But how? And why had I thought I could understand what lay in the abandoned village after all? I woke to a sudden thud, the darkness lifting just enough to see the outline of the dusty old room. My heart raced as I tried to orient myself. I wasn't sure how long I had been unconscious, but the air was different now, thick, but still. I could feel eyes upon me, and awareness prickling down my spine. I scrambled to my feet, my flashlight flickering back to life. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes swirling like trapped spirits. I was alone, or at least I thought so, but a sense of urgency pressed on me. A chill swept through the room as I remembered the child's plea. "They don't want to share." Panic clawed at my throat. Who didn't want to share? The shadows from before danced on the periphery of my mind. I needed answers, and I needed to find a way out. I moved toward the door, my feet moving cautiously. The laughter I had heard echoed in my mind, sinister and inviting. It sent a shiver coursing through me. I had to dismiss it. I pushed the door open, the hinges squeaking in protest. I stepped into the hallway, the beam of my flashlight scanning the space ahead. With each cautious step, the whispers returned, ghostly murmurs wisping through the air. Find us, help us." They taunted and begged all at once. I swallowed hard, trying to drown them out. As I navigated the crumbling corridor, a wooden floorboard creaked beneath my weight. It felt like a million eyes watched my every move, a raw accusation without words. I reached a skirting board thick with dust, and my foot snagged a loose nail, pinning me momentarily in place. My mind clouded with thoughts of the girl, the look in her eyes. I was approaching a door at the end of the hall, and every instinct told me to turn back. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed answers. I reached the door, pushing it ajar. As I stepped inside, I was greeted by a musty smell that made my stomach churn. I aimed the flashlight around the room, revealing a children's playroom, long abandoned. Toys lay scattered, ragged dolls and chipped blocks littered the floor, frozen in time. In the corner stood a battered rocking horse, its paint peeling, yet something about it drew me in. I moved to examine it, and that was when I found it.
Hidden behind the horse's ear was a small key, rusted but intact. I picked it up, my fingers brushing against the cold metal. Suddenly, a loud ash reverberated through the house, shaking the walls. My body tensed, and I turned sharply toward the source of the sound. A door I hadn't seen opened against a wall, revealing a staircase that led down into darkness. I hesitated. My instinct screamed at me to run back the way I came, but the key felt heavy in my pocket. I had come this far. I needed to know. Just then, a voice from deep below beckoned. "Come and play. We've been waiting for you." The timbre was familiar, sending chill bumps rising along my arms. I knew now it was time to confront whatever lurked beneath. I took a shaky breath, stepped forward, and descended the stairs into the unknown. Every step down echoed the promise of secrets yet to unravel. As I stepped down the creaking stairs, the air grew colder, each breath I took thickening with dread. The darkness enveloped me, and I clutched my flashlight like a lifeline. The beam flickered uncertainly, revealing the damp stone walls lined with mildew. Shadows danced, but I didn't let them distract me. I focused on what lay ahead. The voice from above faded into a haunting silence. I found myself straining to hear anything other than the echo of my heartbeat in my ears. I reached the bottom, my foot landing on a gritty floor that felt like it hadn't been disturbed in years. The flashlight beam caught something glinting in the corner. I turned, my heart racing again, and saw a large, rusted metal door. My hand trembled as I approached it. The door had a keyhole, just like the key I had found earlier. I remembered its weight, the way it felt significant in my pocket. It was tempting to think it could unlock whatever lay within. I glanced back up the stairs, debating if I should turn around, but the whispers had transformed into soft cries. "Help us, please." The sound pulled me in, deeper into the dark. I took a deep breath, slid the key from my pocket, and inserted it into the lock. It resisted slightly, but turned with a reluctant click. My heart raced as I pushed the door open, revealing a narrow room that smelled of decay and damp earth. Inside, the walls were lined with old paintings, faces of children peering out from the canvases, their expressions twisted in sorrow. I shuddered, a chill creeping down my spine. "What happened to you?" I whispered, the question hanging heavily in the air. Just as I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, my pulse quickening. I turned back, but the door wouldn't budge. Panic bubbled up in me. I was trapped. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed a small figure crouched by a pile of dust-covered toys. My flashlight swept over it, revealing a child, barefoot, wide-eyed, and ghostly pale. "You shouldn't have come here." The child's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" I asked, heart racing. "What happened?"
"They don't want to share," the child repeated, peering at me with an expression that sent a sliver of ice through my veins. "They want to keep you." Suddenly, the laughter exploded around me again, echoing from all directions. It was high-pitched and terrible, like a chorus of twisted glee. I backed away, scanning for an exit, but I was still boxed in. Then I felt it, a presence pressing down on me, suffocating in its intensity. "I can't stay here. I need to get out." My voice felt fragile, almost lost amid the laughter. But the child only shook their head. "You won't be the one to leave. You'll stay, like us." Everything went dark in an instant. My flashlight flickered out as a wave of whispers engulfed me. I stumbled backward, terror clawing at my insides. I needed to find a way out, but I had to confront the truth. What did they want to keep, and why? My heart raced as I steadied myself in the darkness, determined to fight back. I stood in the oppressive darkness, the silence returning with a weight that felt like a fog settling all around me. My heart thudded in my chest as I blinked, trying to make sense of my surroundings. There was no way to know how long I had been trapped in this room. My hands fumbled in the dark, my fingers brushing against the damp walls. The echoes of the child's warning gnawed at me. Panicked, I forced myself to breathe slowly. Think, I murmured. I stepped further into the room, feeling my way along the painted walls. The artwork felt wrong, somehow grotesque. I could almost sense the sadness spilling from the canvases. Each child's face stared back at me, eyes wide with fear, pleading silently for something. My foot struck something solid on the floor. I bent down, running my fingers over the object. A small broken toy, a doll missing one eye. It felt cold, as if it had absorbed the despair of its past owner. I straightened up quickly, unease flooding through me. And then I heard it again, the sound of laughter, now mixed with whispers. They seemed to swirl around me, taunting me from the corners of the room. "Help us! Help us!" Their voices echoed, soft but insistent, as if reaching out from the shadows behind the paintings. I turned back to the door, desperately pushing against it, but it remained sealed tight. The child had said they wanted to keep me. What did that mean? I was overwhelmed by the thought of being stuck here like the ghostly figures in the paintings. I needed to find an exit. As if spurred by a sudden realization, I rummaged through my pockets, feeling the weight of the key. Could it unlock another door? I turned back to the room, hope flickering. Then, in the corner of my eye, I noticed a darker shape emerging from the shadows. It shifted, taking form, and I froze. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony that filled the air around me. The figure solidified into a tall, shadowy form, its face obscured, but radiating malice. "Did you think you could leave?"
I gasped, the sound escaping my lips before I could stop it. Panic surged as the realization set in. I wasn't just facing echoes from the past. This was something else. "I want out! Let me go!" I shouted, my voice breaking. The air around me crackled with hostility. The laughter transformed, becoming mocking. "You will stay with us." The voice was deep, reverberating through the walls, filling the space with dread. It sent a tremor down my spine, freezing me in place. I had to fight back. The child, I thought of their frightened expression. I couldn't give in. Steeling myself, I turned and sprinted toward the shadow, flooding the space with the light from my flashlight. I could barely see the outline, but I felt its presence shrinking back. But in an instant, I felt a cold grip coil around my ankle. I stumbled, falling to the floor. Panic clawed at my insides as I wrestled with the grip, pulling me deeper into the void. "Please, I just want to leave," I shouted, desperation flooding my voice as I struggled. And then came the child's voice again, clearer this time. "You have to choose." Choose? What did that even mean? Before I could process it, the shadows enveloped me again, and I felt myself being drawn toward a small door hidden behind the paintings. That was when I saw it, a faint light beyond the door, glimmering like hope in the darkness. But just then, I heard the laughter crescendo. "You won't escape. You will become one of us." I had to make a decision. Would I step through the light, or would I succumb to the shadows? I took a shaky breath, my heart racing as I faced the glowing door. It felt like my only hope, but the laughter echoed in my mind. "You will become one of us," they taunted, as if their words had weight pressing down on me. With every moment, the shadows grew thicker. I could feel them crawling over my skin, wrapping around my legs like serpents. I needed to act. I had a choice, but it felt like the walls were closing in, demanding I join their darkness. "No!" I shouted, feeling the surge of adrenaline. I took a step toward the door, hands trembling as I lifted the key. The faint light beyond beckoned, whispering promises of escape. But as I approached, the laughter reached a fever pitch. The shadowy figure loomed larger in my peripheral vision, its presence more imposing, more tangible. "You cannot choose light over us," it growled, its voice a chilling wind that sent shivers down my spine. With a burst of determination, I pressed the key into the doorknob. The metal felt warm against my palm, and I turned it with all my strength. The door resisted, as if sensing my fear. I pushed harder, gritting my teeth, and finally heard a faint click. The door creaked open, revealing the light. I stumbled through, heart pounding as I stepped into the brightness. For a moment, it felt like I had escaped, the laughter fading into the distance. But as I looked around, my heart sank. I wasn't outside. I was in another room, similar to the last, but this one was filled with strange symbols and eerie drawings on the walls. The air felt thick, charged with an unsettling energy that made me shiver. Then I heard it again. That laughter. It was closer now. The shadows from the previous room slithered under the doorframe, creeping toward me. My throat went dry as I backed away, searching for another way out. A low growl resonated behind me. I spun around, and there, blocking my path, was the shadowy figure with a smile that twisted across its obscured face. "You think you can escape?" it hissed, and I felt terror grip my chest. The urge to run flared up inside me, but the only way forward felt trapped. There was nowhere to go, no clear exit, just the suffocating aura of despair and the relentless laughter of lost souls filling the air. "Help us," they echoed, now fewer voices, but just as desperate. I remembered the child's words, "You have to choose." It wasn't just an escape, it was a decision that could mean the difference between becoming trapped or maybe freeing those who pleaded with me. But how? My eyes darted around the room, searching frantically for something, anything that would give me a clue. That was when I noticed the symbols on the walls. They seemed to glow, but what did they mean? Suddenly, the shadows escalated. I could feel the darkness surrounding me, the laughter morphing into a deafening roar. Just when I thought desperation might consume me, something flickered in the corner of my vision, a glimmer, a promise lingering just out of reach. I took a step toward it without thinking. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if sensing my movement. "What are you doing?" the figure spat, venom dripping from its words. I had to move. This was my chance.
I broke into a sprint toward the uncertain light, unaware of what lay ahead, but driven by the desperate need to escape a fate worse than death. Just as I reached the light, the walls trembled. I could feel the shadows claw at my back, and I knew whatever lay beyond would determine not just my fate, but potentially the fate of those still trapped within the darkness. I pushed through the threshold, not knowing what awaited me, but I had to know. I stumbled into a cavernous space, lit by an otherworldly glow. The air felt charged, tinged with a metallic scent that was both familiar and unsettling. The walls here pulsed with light, each symbol shimmering as if alive, casting complex shadows that danced eerily around me. I was no longer in a simple room. I had crossed into a realm where time felt warped and the very essence of reality shifted. I looked back, half expecting the shadowy figure to follow, but it hesitated at the threshold, snarling. "You can't hide forever," it hissed, its voice echoing. The door behind it began to pulsate with darkness, and I could feel my strength wavering. I turned my attention away from the figure, focusing on my surroundings.
It was as if I had stepped into a twisted gallery, the symbols on the walls depicting scenes of despair and torment. I could see faces etched into the designs, their eyes wide with horror. Were these the lost souls that had echoed their pleas before? What had happened here? As I took hesitant steps deeper into the room, I was pulled toward a swirling vortex of symbols at the far end. It radiated a strange warmth, contrasting the cold dread surrounding me. I felt an undeniable urge to reach out, to touch the very fabric of this place. Could it be my way out? But just as I approached, a sudden chill swept through the air. It clawed at my skin, and I turned sharply to see a flicker of movement near the edges of the light. A shadow detached itself from the walls, merging with other creeping shadows that poured in from the doorway. Panic surged as the laughter escalated once more, drowning out my thoughts. This wasn't just a room. It felt like a trap, a snare set for those who wandered too deep. I looked for any exit, my breath quickening. The vortex was now a competing force against the shadowy tendrils wrapping around my ankles, pulling me back. I felt the weight of their whispers. They wanted me to join them. They craved my fear. Then I noticed something distinct in the air, an outline of a door I hadn't seen before, hidden behind a tapestry of darkness. My instincts kicked in. I moved swiftly, the shadowy figure howling in fury behind me. "Run, but you can't escape your fate," it shouted, its voice echoing through the chamber, but I pressed on, compelled by the faint glow from the door. My fingers brushed against the cold handle, and I hesitated. Would opening it lead to freedom, or plunge me deeper into despair? I had to choose. With a burst of determination, I flung the door open. Inside, what lay beyond caught me completely off guard. It wasn't the freedom I expected. It was another hallway, but this one was lined with mirrors that reflected unrecognizable, nightmarish versions of myself. I felt my breath catch. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. A heavy silence blanketed the corridor, and I knew I wasn't just being watched. I was being hunted. Then I heard it again, a voice soft and sweet, distinct among the chaos. "Help us, please." I had to make a decision quickly. Who was calling? Before another second passed, I took a step into the mirror, and everything shattered around me. I felt myself tumbling through the fragments of glass, each shard slicing into the very essence of my being. For a moment, there was nothing but chaos, light and dark, laughter and screams. Memories swirled around me, disorienting me until the world snapped back into focus. I landed on the cold, hard ground of a familiar place, back in the village. The moonlight spilled across the ruins, illuminating everything with a haunting glow. I was disoriented, but I felt a strange calm settle over me. Where was the laughter? Where were the shadows? I stood up on shaky legs, glancing around. The air was thick with an eerie quiet, yet it felt different. I stared at the cottage where all of this had begun, feeling a mix of dread and determination. I took a few steps towards it, each footfall heavy with unspoken promises. Here, nor do you belong there. You are trapped between worlds. "No," I replied, feeling a swell of defiance. "I found a way out." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that sliced through the night, an eerie reminder of all the children who had lingered in this desolate place. "Do you think distance can erase the truth? They want you, just as they wanted the others.
I took a step back, glancing toward the darkness that once felt like a sanctuary. I won't be trapped again. I know the truth now. But just then, I caught sight of a group of figures watching from the shadows, faces twisted in anguish and sadness. The children, they had been waiting. A flicker of hope hung in the air, yet how could I help them? With every heartbeat, the shadows shifted closer, pressing against my resolve. "Stay with us," they whispered in unison. "Help us cross over." My heart raced. I had seen what lay behind the mirror, a chance at freedom, but it came at a cost. I could help them, but it might mean becoming like them. Would I lose myself to this village forever? "I want to help, but what does that mean?" I shouted, my voice tremoring in the still night. A silence fell, thick with anticipation. Then the child from the shadows, the one who had spoken to me before, stepped forward. "Stay and tell our story," she whispered, her voice laced with desperation, "so we may finally rest." The weight of her words sank into my chest, and I felt the pull of their shared sorrow. Could I truly bear the burden of their past? Could I weave their tales into something worthy, for them and for my own peace? The air felt charged with unresolved tension. I glanced toward the path I had crossed to arrive here, uncertain if I had the strength left to turn away. Finally, I took a deep breath. "If I stay, I promise to tell your story. But I need to know, what happened to you? What took you from your home?" The shadows shifted, some settling down with longing, while others swirled in agitation. "They took us when the darkness fell," the girl said, her voice wavering. "But our stories remain. You must tell them all." And with that, the shadows grew heavier, but some, the children, began to transform, their outlines becoming clearer. I stepped forward, feeling the weight of my choice settle like stone in my heart. I wouldn't run again. I would share their stories. Perhaps the truth could illuminate this darkness, even if it meant I might never leave.
As I turned to face the linger of shadows still wrapped in anguish, I finally understood the complexity of what I was striving to accomplish. I may always wonder about the dim thresholds between stories, between the world here and the world beyond. But one thing felt certain: I would carry their voices forward, whether as a shadow of the past or a flicker of light seeking redemption. And so, with renewed purpose, I began to write, not just for myself, but for the lost souls who had asked me for help, for those who wanted their stories told, and perhaps in doing so, set them free. I may never leave this village, but their legacy would live on, echoing through every story I shared. I took a steady breath, ready to face whatever may come.